Hello everyone, welcome to my monthly trophy recap where I go over every single trophy I've gained in a single month. So this was a pretty productive month for me because I gained over 300 total trophies, which is kind of crazy. I also want to take the chance to thank you everyone for watching the previous videos I've released. It really means a lot. The constructive feedback has been received and everyone's been very kind and supportive, so I really appreciate every single one of you that's watched. I also changed my setup a bit. I have a new camera and I have a new microphone. So let me know if the microphone sounds much better. If it sounds good, is it still quiet? Is it still low? I appreciate every constructive feedback. It really means a lot to me. So thank you so much. The video that I'm recording right now is a January review, which I'm releasing closer to February. So it was meant to be released a little sooner, but that's fine. It just means that we'll have a February trophy related review sooner rather than later. So since I got over 300 trophies, this will take a bit of time. Let's dive right into it. And we started off the month by finishing off Sekiro. So we did get the platinum for Sekiro, which we noticed here. I'm not going to go into the game as much as the last video where I did go into a lot of details, but I still absolutely love this game. It's just an impressive game and honestly my favorite FromSoft game. One thing that sticks out in my mind is how common, and I know this is a theme across all FromSoft games and Souls-like, where the completion percentage is crazy how now Sekiro currently stands at 28%, which is still very rare, but the amount of grind for these last two trophies right here, which is acquire all skills and upgrade all your tools, this does take a significant amount of time. An interesting mechanic in this game is that if you keep looping New Game Plus Plus, every single time you add, every time you loop the new game, the rewards for killing enemies are greater. So a strategy a lot of people do is just constantly going through and gaining New Game Plus and just getting more rewards that way, because it's a compounding effect, because if you loop it more than once, twice, 3 times, then you just get more rewards. Now, what I decided to do is just do one New Game Plus, finished off a few trophies, and then I ran a single lap of the same course over and over. It took about 6 to 8 hours of just purely grinding a specific trek, and all you're looking for is money. So to level up, to finish up your leveling, you need to hit a certain amount of money and resources to upgrade your tools. And once I did that, and again, it does take a while, which is always impressive how common these trophies are. So if you have the Sekiro Platinum, shout out. It does take a bit of time. It's not something that's extremely common, but it does require a bit of grinding. Specifically, these last two trophies require you to grind for about 6 to 8 hours a same route. Now, if you do decide to do New Game Plus Plus, then you're in luck. I didn't do that in this case. I just stuck out with my first New Game Plus. But if you keep looping New Game Plus, you will get more rewards. So something to keep in consideration and kind of a unique mechanic in my opinion. And then we go right into 2 trophies from Balatro. Now these are sort of the easiest trophies I have left, which is Tiny Hands. Tiny Hands did take me a while to get for some reason. It requires you to break your deck to 20 cards or fewer. I ended up using the deck that doesn't have any face cards because you start off with less amount of cards. It did still take me a while because you kind of have to rely on rolling and getting Hangman, which allows you to delete a certain amount of cards. You also have to rely on getting a lot of spectral cards because there is one, I forget the name on top of my head, but it allows you to sell a bunch of cards for money. RNG for this run did take me a lot longer than I anticipated. I don't know why it took me so long to get 10, 20 or fewer cards, but it was a bit of a grind for me. I got a bit unlucky. I had to constantly run the deck with no face cards over and over until I got lucky, which honestly was kind of frustrating because by just running the white stick, you're not really progressing anything else. Ideally, you would want to hit gold stick with your other decks. The next trophy we got is just discovering all of my collection. There's some cool things that the game allows you to have, like specific planet cards. I didn't know about this before I played it, so it's kind of interesting to see it myself. So again, I'm not going to spoil what is required, but it's pretty neat. All I have left for Balatro is 3 trophies, which is requiring to complete all the challenges and completing gold stake with every single deck. Now, I'm not going to expect this game to show up again for the next monthly reviews. We'll see. It's still a game that I'm constantly grinding, still enjoying it, but I'm not progressing as fast as when I first started playing it, but I still love this game and I still highly recommend it. Now we finally move on to Toem. Now Toem is a game that was released in 2021. I absolutely love this game. It looks beautiful. It is an interesting art style that I really appreciate. It's almost like faux 2D/3D, a bit like Paper Mario. And this game has a very fun trophy list. None of the trophies are missable, so if you've not played this game, then I do recommend it. Just go in with no information. Nothing is missable. Just play and have fun. It is a puzzle game, but it's very light on the puzzle. It's not something very complicated where you'll have to think outside the box. It's just a fun, pleasant experience. In this case, what I had left is just the DLC. I've already platinumed the game, so I had to just complete the DLC for a new island called Basto, and this DLC is completely free, which is always awesome. Easy recommend from me. Very relaxing. You just take pictures, very chill vibes, and I'm just excited for Toem 2. Toem 2 is being released. There's no release date, but it was released that is being worked on, so I'm excited to see what they have in store. Now we have Windjammers. I went back to clean up this game. I finished up a few trophies, as you can see here, super custom move, block, super custom move. So I had a few of these trophies left. Now, it was a bit of a grind, but the hardest trophy is actually completing hard mode. I've mentioned this previously on the previous episode, but I love this game playing with multiplayer with a friend, but I really cannot recommend this game if you're just strictly playing single player. The AI in the single player I honestly feel like it's unfair at hard. It certainly cheats in some way. What I had to do to beat this hard mode, which I'll roll some footage, is I had to pause buffer the entire time. Now the run takes about 20 to 30 minutes, so you have to constantly pause buffer every few seconds for 30 minutes straight. And if you make one mistake, you throw away the run. So if you were to ever attempt this trophy, you have to definitely do the pause buffer. If you've beaten this game without using the pause buffer technique, then kudos to you, because I just think it's not possible. It's an insanely hard game. A bit of a nitpick with this list is that you have a trophy where you have to slide 10,000 times. Now, 10,000 times might not sound like a lot, but if you go back through the list of trophies, there's, you got to hit a certain amount of move, like hit X amount of super custom moves, super moves. And for some reason, by the time you're done with boosting the online trophies and hard mode, you will have completed every single other, trophy that is related with the super moves. But for some reason, it's like the slide for 10,000 is skewed in a different way. So you will not hit 10,000 slides unless you're playing a lot with friends and just having fun, which is the ideal way to play this game. But if you're just going for the platinum and you've grinded the multiplayer trophies, you will not hit the 10,000 slide naturally by the time you finish the hard mode. So you will have to spend, I think it took me about 4 hours of just constantly sliding around, pressing X, and it was just, I can't really recommend getting this platinum. It's rare, and it is definitely the rarest trophy I have. It's sitting at 1.06%. Sorry, the rarest platinum, I should say. And it is a grind, so I cannot necessarily recommend it. And moving on to the next game, Horizon Zero Dawn. I previously played this game when it first was released, and I really enjoyed it back in the day. I never played the DLC, so I decided to go back, clean up the DLC, and there is also a trophy for New Game Plus. The DLC itself, overall, I thought the DLC was a bit bland, if I'm being honest, and I might just be in the minority here because I looked at reviews and the reviews were fairly positive. So again, let me know if you think this DLC was a bit of disappointment, but I was a bit let down, and I was initially scared that maybe it's the open world fatigue that I'm getting, because there was a lot of open world games when this was released, but definitely not as much as today. Today I don't enjoy open world games as I used to. It's a bit of a genre that's oversaturated for sure, but you know, the DLC was kind of average, I would say. None of these trophies are too difficult. It's just basically beating the DLC and then reaching the new cap, which is level 60. Like most Sony first-party games, they always get a new trophy for New Game Plus. In this case, it was beating the game on ultra hard difficulty. Now, ultra hard difficulty might sound like it was very hard, but it wasn't that difficult. If you do plan on doing this, make sure you do the DLC, because you do get some extremely powerful weapons by playing the DLC that makes the main game quite trivial, and ultra hard is not that hard. When I did the New Game Plus run, I basically just rushed the game. I didn't do any side content because it carries over your equipment, your resources. So if you have a lot of resources farmed, you can just start New Game Plus and you can just rush the main story. And that's what I did. It didn't take me that long, maybe 6 hours or so. You know, I've mentioned that I wasn't a big fan of the DLC, but when I went back and played the main game for New Game Plus, I did really enjoy it. So I didn't like it as much as I initially did, but I still thought it was pretty decent. So just something to think about, where I feel like I didn't love the game as much as I first played it. So who knows? Let me know if you like this game a lot. But for me, over time, maybe it's just, like I've mentioned, the open world saturation. I still think the game is great. I haven't played the sequel yet, which I'm interested in, but I'm not sure when I'll get to it. Also, when I ran the New Game Plus, I still think the last boss of the main game is so cool. The fight, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but the fight for the last boss in Horizon Zero Dawn is very, very well designed. One of my favorite genres are roguelites. I stumbled upon a game called Army of Ruins. When I first looked at it, I saw that the platinum rarity was sitting at about 50%. So I said, you know what, let's give it a shot. I have not played it. I didn't really know much about it, so I decided to buy it. It was on sale, and played it. This game is essentially a clone of Vampire Survivors. I still haven't played Vampire Survivors, so I can't really compare the two, but I still thought this game was great. It's just a fun game. It has an interesting gameplay loop where you're combining elements and it enhances your abilities. It's pretty well done. So like I've mentioned, I haven't played Vampire Survivor, so I can't really compare it, but a lot of these trophies are pretty simple. Graveyard is just a level, so you're just reaching level 20 with a specific hero. The addictive nature of these games makes it so it's always a fun thing to grind and constantly go back to, because every single run you're always unlocking something new, whether it be a new hero or a new ability. It's very addictive to constantly just play and unlock new abilities. So a lot of this list is just unlocking essentially almost every single item. So I will skip a lot over this. Nothing is too difficult. It's just very time consuming. And this brings up to my point, where when I finally got the platinum, which is sitting at a 43.17%, I'm always amazed. I'm like, wow, this guy is got to be a pretty quick one, right? Normally when platinums are around the 50% range, they're, 4 to 5 hour long platinums. But this honestly took me almost 20 hours. And it's just to show you how people love and crave the Vampire Survivor genre, where whatever, even if the platinum takes you 20, 40 hours, it will still be extremely common. I can understand why it's addictive. It's just constant grinding, constant new loop, and you're always getting new levels. You're always getting new items. You're always getting new characters, and playing new characters allows you to unlock new items. It's very well made. I did quite enjoy this game, so I do recommend it. And then we're moving on to Celeste. One of my favorite indie games of all time, my favorite 2D platformer. It's got to be up there. I think this game is absolutely phenomenal. What an incredible game. Perfect soundtrack. I love the character. Perfect pixel art. Just a masterpiece of a game. When I think of Celeste, I really have no faults of it. I can't think of a single thing where I think the game is bad or different, or I would not change a single thing. So I decided to go back. A lot of these trophies, I had majority of the trophies completed already. However, I'll be honest, I did turn on the accessibility features and did clean it up that way. I sort of regret it because I was honestly like 90% done with the game at that point. I had a few things to clean up, but I was literally sitting at 90% done. I could have just done it all legit. It would have taken me obviously much longer, but I couldn't resist temptation and I turned on the accessibility feature, which makes this platinum trivial. I mean, you can turn on these features and it just makes it so you can dash unlimited times in the air and you don't die basically. So it makes this game very easy. If you do play this game for the first time, please do not turn on these features. At least beat the main game and a few B-sides. You will die often. I think in some of my levels I had, it gives you a total amount of deaths, and I'm in the 300, 400 deaths. You know, dying in this game is part of the game. You learn. And it's also the same reason why I absolutely love Super Meat Boy. When you die in this game, it doesn't take long. You can just respawn almost instantly and you just go back into it. And Super Meat Boy, one of the things I love the most is when you die, you respawn almost immediately. There's no loading. You don't have to wait for the game to load or tell you you've died. It's instant respawn. If you're going to make a game very hard, like Celeste and Super Meat Boy, you have to include an ability where when you die, you instantly respawn. And a bit of a side tangent here. And this is why I particularly didn't really love the Mario Maker series is when you die in that game, there's a death animation. It has to reload. It has to tell you how many lives you have. I just wish there was an ability to, when you die, instantly make me respawn. We're playing these hard levels where we're just going to keep grinding and grinding and grinding. I don't want to see an animation or a death animation. It makes the experience of learning and practicing the game very fun. So yeah, I went back and collected a few hearts. Like I've mentioned, I'm a bit ashamed and a bit disappointed because I was 90% there. Almost every single B-side was almost completed. I should have just done it legitimately, but I didn't. I was 90% there, and I could have just had a legit run of a Celeste Platinum. C-sides I didn't touch, obviously, because you have to complete the B-sides to get to the C-sides. So I, had no experience, but the C-sides they were hard, but they were very short levels. So I'm sure I could have learned it. So yeah, if you do play this game for the first time, do not turn on these accessibility features. At least beat the main game and then, play it. I'm a part of a backlog challenge, which is the Polykill Bingo. And one of these squares require you to beat a dinosaur game. And when I think of a dinosaur game, I immediately think of Turok. I've never played Turok. This was my first time. So this was the Night Dive Studios remake of Turok. And this was on the PS4. This is my first time playing it. And I had no expectations. I didn't really know what type of game it was. I went in with zero information, and I thought the game was fine. I didn't absolutely love it. I didn't necessarily hate it. It has a very cool gameplay loop. So if you're not aware, when you play Turok, there is a hub world. The hub world has a different number of stages, and these stages are locked behind portals. And to unlock these portals, you have to get keys. These keys are hidden across the levels. So, for example, you unlock level 1, you go through level 1, and there's a bunch of keys that are hidden in that level 1, which unlocks other levels. It doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to unlock level 2. It doesn't progress that way. You can unlock a key for level 5, for example, but it makes it that it makes it so you have to really explore these levels. The keys are really well hidden. I had to look up. I did most of the keys. I found most of the keys myself, but I did have to look up the location of maybe 3 to 4 keys. It was a fine game. I'm not extremely positive about it. I'm not extremely negative. I just thought it was, just a bit of an average game. Night Dive Studios, as usual, they just remake amazing games. They do such a great job. Them and Blue Point are the top tier of remakes in my mind. And they have a very cool feature where, for some reason, this normally never bothers me, but while I was playing the game, the character's head bobbing, it really bobs a lot. Like, it's bouncing. For some reason, it's just bouncing a lot. As usual, like I've mentioned, Night Dive just adds a ton of options, custom options. And there's an actual option to disable the head bobbing, including a ton of other options. And thanks to that, I removed it. It was causing me to be a bit motion sickness for some reason. Like I said, this never happens, but the head bobbing in this game is insane. And you do pick up a lot of speed. One of my favorite trophies was this right here, completing the trial mode under 2 minutes and 45 seconds. This is going to be the gameplay that's looping. It was a lot of fun. It required me to do it maybe in 10 attempts or so, but I love these short burst speedrunning trophies where it's beat the stage in 2 minutes, and it's, something that's significantly hard, but it's not impossible, where you have to really practice and get your right pattern, right rhythm. I really like these short burst speedrun trophies. Unfortunately, I did get most of the trophies in this game, but I was missing one. I'm not sure what happened. This is to assemble the last weapon. For some reason, I was following a guide, and I know I hit every single weapon. It's in like pieces, so you have to build it, and every single level there's a piece. And I know I hit every single secret area because I have the secret area trophy, which leads into the pieces. But for some reason, I forgot to pick up a piece or something, but I didn't unlock this weapon, which is quite unfortunate. I do have a backup save before the last fight, because when you get to the last stage, it locks you out of the hub world. So if you're ever to go through this game, just make sure you do a save before the last level. But yeah, not a game that I particularly absolutely love, but I didn't hate it. Just this game fell a bit in the middle. Just a game that I didn't really love, nor did I hate. So it was fine. One of my favorite games of all time is Donkey Kong Country, the trilogy. Particularly love the second. I really like the first one. Third one, still a decent game, but I don't like it as much. So to this day, I'm still looking for good Donkey Kong Country clones. I first played this game back in 2022, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. So for these trophies, you do have to complete each stage without getting hit. So you have to do it perfect. You have to get all the unlockables. You have to get all the bonuses. You have to basically, like in Donkey Kong Country, you have these Kong letters that are hidden across the level. A coin, sort of the same idea here, where you have to hit these collectibles. Like I've mentioned, I wasn't particularly hot on this game, but when I went back to it, I really enjoyed this game more the second playthrough than the first one. Maybe I was just a bit harsh because, let's face it, I don't think anything will match Donkey Kong Country 2's quality in my eyes, just because it's a bit unfair, because I'm super nostalgic for it as well. So it's an impossible task. But if I could step back and look at this game objectively, I think this is an excellent game. I really recommend it, especially if you love 2D platformers. And this game has a really cool trophy called Speedrunner, which you have to complete the game in 2 hours. It's not really that hard. You do have a lot of time. They're very generous. I completed the game, I think, in an hour and like 15 minutes, for example, an hour, 30 minutes. They're very generous with the amount of time, so it's not difficult. I did it in my first attempt. I didn't have any backup saves. I just did it in one playthrough. It's the way I recommend it. I don't recommend waiting too long once you beat this game, because the levels are really fresh, especially if you do perfect levels. Great little game, nothing too negative. I'm definitely a lot more of a fan of this game the second time than the first one. So I think this game is awesome. So I do recommend it. Go ahead and play it. Next game on the list, this is a pretty common platinum, but we have a game called Minute, When I first heard about this game, I was extremely excited because it's a game that has a very fun, very beautiful art style, very simple, and the concept of the game is you have a minute to explore and do things in the level. Then you die and you respawn. So the idea of the progression is you have a minute to maybe unlock a bridge, and that bridge remains unlocked or fixed, or you push a rock and that rock now remains pushed. So I love that style of game. I really love the peculiar concept of this game. It's a lot of fun, and I respect it for what it did. But if I'm being completely honest, as much as I love the concept, as much as I love the art style, as much as I love everything about it, I think in execution it kind of fell off a bit. I wanted to like, maybe it's because it's a bit unfair. I think I wanted to like this game more than I liked it. You know, I just love the concept so much, and it just felt a bit of a letdown. But it's not a terrible game. It's just not great. Also, this game you will have. I recommend beating it the first time, but you will have to use a guide to complete the platinum, because this specific trophy here, which is completing the game in 25 runs or less, this trophy here will require you to beat the game in less than 25 minutes, right? Because you have a minute per run, you have to beat the game in 25 runs or less. So it's very hard to do if you don't know anything about the game. So these remaining trophies, I had to use a guide to clean it up. When Returnal was first released, it was one of these games that I was the most excited. I am a huge Housemarque fan since they've released Resogun. So when I saw that they were making a roguelike, I mean, my favorite genre with one of my favorite studios, I couldn't be more excited. And it took me a while to buy the game for whatever reason. And when I did play it, I did play a majority of this game, but I did not finish it. For whatever reason, I simply fell off, or it didn't stick with me for whatever reason. What an incredible game. I cannot recommend this game enough. It is bullet hell third-person game where you're running around and you have these massive amount of barrages, these big bullet patterns that you have to dodge. You have to dash across, you have to dash to the left. It's just such a fun, great game. For some reason, I played it and I just stopped playing. And I really can't explain why. Just stopped playing, and I went a year later. So the first time I played it was in January 2024. So in January 2025, I went back and cleaned up the trophy. This game has a very famous trophy where it's very RNG dependent, and it's hard to explain without spoiling too much, but you have these biomes where you have to find these collectibles that are only spawning in certain rooms, and you're not guaranteed, because this is a roguelike and it's RNG, you're not guaranteed to hit these specific biomes in your run. However, it's not as bad as what people say online, because there was an update, I'm not sure when, but there was an update that added the activity cards, and you could know exactly which collectible you were missing. And there is a guide on PSNP that allows you to look up the activity card, find the number of the collectible, and you know exactly in which room it spawns. By knowing this, you can run specific set pieces. For example, I was missing one of my last ones I was missing for a certain biome, and I knew that it spawned only after halfway through the level. This room would only spawn then. So what I would do is I would rush halfway across the game, then I would explore every single room. So I would not explore, like, you know, the first half of the level. I would not explore any room. I would get to the second half and I would explore this room. So there's a way to manipulate this RNG. It's not as bad as it seems. So at that part, when I was trying to finish up this game, I would run the same pattern. I would get to where the biome was supposed to spawn it. Then I would just restart the game if it didn't give me the room that I needed. So it wasn't as bad as it seems at first. And with the PSNP guide, which links every single picture with every single collectible, it just makes it pretty easy. And I also, by replaying it, I did also play the DLC. The DLC is completely free if you've played it. Also, this is on PSN Premium, so if you have that service, this game is free there. What an incredible game. And in my opinion, I think the DLC is even better than the main game. Like, everyone that's played this game, they also need to play the DLC, because the DLC is incredible. The DLC is more refined, so it's just more straightforward. It's more action based. You have to clear rooms after room, so it's basically you have this tower where you have to clear a floor, and then you keep climbing the tower, and it gets progressively harder, and you have boss fights. It's just a phenomenal game. I cannot recommend. This is also on PC, so if you're not aware. I had another game on the Vita called Taco Master that was unfinished. So I decided to go back and finish it up. I had my Vita. I had, it's not something I don't play the Vita as often as I would like to, but I decided to go back and finish off this game. Now, it's essentially like an old iPhone game, an iPhone Touch game where you're making orders, you're making tacos essentially. So think of like Diner Dash type of game. You're dragging, you're making food. It's just that. It's not amazing. It's not bad. If you're ever nostalgic for the old iPod Touch era games and the early like touch games, this is definitely one of them. It's just a simple game. You know what to expect when you see this game. The trophies themselves are not too difficult. It's just finishing 500 fish tacos, for example, getting all the gold medals, so you just have to play perfectly. It's not that difficult. You will have to replay certain stages. Then you got to deliver 1,000 orders total. Again, you'll just get this naturally by playing. It didn't take me that long. And then we got the platinum here. Nothing too bad. Pretty common platinum, but I had this game being, if this game's fairly cheap, so if you're ever in the mood for those types of games, sure, why not? I don't have anything too negatives to say about it. It's just one of those games. And since I had the PlayStation Vita in my hands, there was one trophy that I was missing in the PlayStation All-Star game, which was the DLC. So I had to buy the DLC. So yes, I did spend $3 or whatever it is for this specific character. So I basically bought a silver trophy for $3. And this game, unfortunately, is not... You cannot play this game anymore online. It's disabled, so the platinum is unattainable. But I already had the platinum. I just had this one DLC trophy, which I didn't complete, so I went back, bought the DLC, completed, and you know what? I haven't played this game since it was first released, so it's a lot of years between. And I do gotta say, this game is pretty good. It's pretty awesome. I miss Sony when they used to release games like this, where I feel like Sony would never release a PlayStation All-Stars 2, It feels like it's too much of a, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like it's too much of a risk, where they're always trying to hit these massive service types of games. So I don't know if they would ever release a game like that. We'll see. But I still enjoyed this game. I thought it played pretty well. And then speaking of Vita games and Sony games, for Sony first party games, I went back and cleaned Sound Shapes. Now Sound Shapes, this was like a lot of the early people, like when I first heard of stacks, people were getting like PS Vita, PS3, PS4 stacks where they would buy the game once and then immediately unlock all trophies. This is the first example that comes to my mind where people would unlock every single trophy within seconds. Now, I particularly don't do that myself, and if you do, that's fine, but I don't do that myself. So I went back and decided to finish up Sound Shapes. Now, Sound Shape is an incredible game. I wish Sony would wish Sony would release more games like this. I had so much fun replaying. I did replay this game, and I did complete a bunch of hard levels, which actually they were, I'm not gonna lie, pretty difficult. They're not super easy. Like, I would say they're harder than 40%. But I think people really grinded this game because they knew if they completed this trophy, they would unlock it on every single system. So I think this is why it's fairly skewed. What an incredible game. So I went back, cleaned up the platinum. People sometimes refer it to a shovelware, but it's not a shovelware game. It's really, really, really well made. I really recommend it. It is a rhythm platforming game. A lot of fun. Great game, great music. Deadmau5 and Beck made some music for this, which is pretty cool. I didn't, by replaying it, I didn't really enjoy Beck's music, but I did really enjoy the Deadmau5 stages are pretty fun. So a lot of you already know this, but this game has a ton of DLC. So if I already went back and cleaned the platinum, why the hell would I not go back and get every single DLC trophy? So I will skip to the end because, I mean, there's like 2 pages of pure DLC. And if I'm being honest, the DLC is a bit of a letdown. I was hoping for more stages, right? I was like, oh my god, like a guitar stages, like it's gonna be cool, or a drum stage. But it's basically these DLCs are not levels. They're just a grid that has a bar that moves left to right and constantly loops. And you have to place certain elements in different columns or different rows, and it makes different sonic sounds. So for these stages, or they're just challenger stages where the grid is empty and it's always playing the sound. So you have to basically take the audio cue and find out where the specific sound fits. It's not something that I find that I would think that would be very easy to do, but I definitely use the guide for all the DLC, because I don't think I could ever beat this DLC without a guide, if I'm being honest, because I'm not very good with rhythm games or audio things. It's definitely one of my weakness in the gaming sphere. So it's just a bit of a shame, if I'm being honest. I wish that there were just standard levels and not just this grid type of game. Like I was mentioning, I'm in a bit of a mood to play a lot of roguelikes recently. You know, especially motivated to climb that leaderboard. And I had Hades. I've already beaten the game. I've already actually beaten the game. And again, it's hard to talk about specifics on how you beat this game, but if you know, you know. I've already beaten the game, so I had a few trophies. I did 80% of it, and I just stopped. I initially really wanted to go to Platinum when I first played it, but I didn't, so I had to just clean this game up. This game has, honestly, the best roguelike story of any single game. And it's, like I've mentioned, it's hard to talk about it without spoiling it, but if you're just purely talking about a story in a roguelike game, which one is the best? This is easily the best roguelike story of any game. It has incredible music, incredible voiceover. I'm still amazed on Supergiant's voiceover, even in their older games like Transistor and Bastion. The voiceover work they do is absolutely phenomenal. It sounds like it's better than most AAA studios, if I'm being honest. And the full package of music, the voiceovers, everything is just amazing. If you're new to the roguelike genre, I definitely recommend playing Hades. I think it's the best introduction to this genre. Even my girlfriend, who doesn't play any roguelike games, when she saw the graphics, when she saw the characters' art, the voiceovers, she wanted to play. So it's something that she will play, and she's never played a roguelike game before. So it really is incredible how it looks and how it sounds. And if I'm being honest, this is probably a hot take, but I am not the biggest fan of Hades. I just think that the build diversity is not really what I'm looking for in a roguelike. It's still a great game. It's still a 5 out of 5. It's still a game that I highly recommend it, but I just don't love it. In my roguelike tier list, it would not be as high as other people would probably put it. With that being said, I'm still excited for Hades 2. I'll play that day one when it releases 1.1, but I know I'm in the minority here, so it's just my opinion at the end of the day. I just didn't really love the gameplay, if I'm being honest. The trophy list, not too bad. There's a lot of RNG trophies. Unfortunately, I don't know if I just got extremely unlucky. The last trophy I had was a story element with the first boss. And again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you have to beat the first boss to potentially trigger the story beat. And I was just unlucky. So at the end of to finish off the platinum, I had to run to the end of the first boss, beat the first boss, then immediately reset my run. And I must have done that 10 to 15 times before I had the last story beat with the character. I must have just been unlucky, because I can't imagine it being that rare. It's the first boss, so you would think that this would be the first one I would complete, but I didn't. It was the last trophy I needed, which is kind of odd, because I must have killed this first boss. Well, every single time that I progressed the story, I killed it, so I kind of weird. And then we finish the run with the platinum. Great little game. I still recommend it. Again, it's not. I'm thinking I'm probably sounding more harsh than what it is. It's still a great game. We finished off the platinum. Pretty common. Again, it's this, people really love Hades, so it's a pretty common game. It is a bit of a grind at the end, so always impresses me when games that are super common, that are pretty difficult. So if you have the platinum for this game, then congratulations. It's not an easy one. And you'll notice between these Hades trophies right here, I have 2 Battlefield 4 trophies. Now, I went back in September and cleaned up my 2 remaining Battlefield 4 trophies. Now, I've mentioned this in the previous video, where it's something that I'm always motivated to go back and clean as many multiplayer games as I can. In this case, we had 2 trophies left, which is your Titan Res Ready, which is killing someone by activating a Titan in the map where the flames come out of the Titan. You have to kill someone, so I boosted that. And we also have a trophy here called King in the North, which requires you getting all the final stand assignments. Doing this trophy is an insane amount of grind. I don't really recommend going for these trophies. I started boosting Battlefield 4. You'll notice here I have all the DLC trophies, so I have every single trophy. I have the platinum, but going through and getting all the DLC trophies is a grind. You have to do these assignments right here. For example, you have Dragon Teeth assignments. You have to complete all Dragon Teeth assignment. Assignments are in-game achievements. So for example, in Dragon Teeth, you have to, there's like brown, silver, gold assignments. There's maybe like 15 of them total. So you have to do these achievements which are inside the game to get this trophy, which is just a silver. So I had the same boosting group. We started back in, if I'll notice the date, we started back in August of last year. So, you know, it was kind of hard to find a schedule with all 4 of us. So I boosted this game with the same 4 people. It was a lot of fun. I got to know them. Interesting characters. And then we got the platinum. We finished the last DLC. So I'm completely 100% done with this game. Always feels great when you wrap up a game. And I really enjoy Battlefield 4. I'm not a big Call of Duty fan, but I really like Battlefield games. It's a lot of fun. So overall, great game. Very happy with this one. And excited to have another game that's completed. After playing all these great games, I decided to play some jank. So we had the Indiana Jones Staff of Kings that was added recently on the PlayStation Classic series. So I'm always in the mood. I always enjoy playing sometimes a PS2 licensed janky game, which in this case, it lined up perfectly. It got released shortly after I finished all these incredible games. And I was like, you know what? I gotta play something a little different and something a little janky. So I decided to go through Indiana Jones Staff of Kings. We don't have these types of licensed games anymore, right? In the PS2 era, we always had these licensed games that were incredibly janky, but they're still fun to play. So it's worth playing, but it's just very janky and it's of the era. If you see gameplay, you'll know exactly what I mean. And if you've played this game, you kind of know what you're expecting when you get into it. It's a game that's definitely of the era, and I had a lot of fun. If you do decide to go for it, nothing is missable. You can just use chapter selects. A lot of it is just getting all artifacts. So just go through this game. Quick game. Takes you about 5 to 6 hours to complete. And just a fun game if you're ever in the mood to play some PS2 Indiana Jones. And then we wrap up January with the Indiana Jones Staff of Kings Platinum, which we got on the 30th of January. Now, if you've watched the entire video, this is probably going to be a longer one because there's a ton of trophies for this month. So I thank you very much. I appreciate if you watched the entire thing. I'll be releasing the February video sooner rather than later. So you'll have more trophies that I've gone in the month of February, which is lining up to be as many as January, if I'm being honest. I appreciate everyone watching. If you have any feedback, let me know how the mic sounds. If the audio sounds good, if the camera looks better, let me know. I appreciate all the constructive feedback, and I will post a new monthly recap. I also stream on Twitch Sundays and Mondays. I start about 8 p.m. Eastern, so if you want to catch me live, you can follow me on Twitch, which will be linked at the bottom of this video. Yeah, thank you so much. If you have any video ideas you'd like me to cover, let me know. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.